This is KGW News at noon.
Good afternoon, I'm Drew Carney. We'll recap Oregon's new mask mandate rules and the vaccine requirements for state employees that the governor just laid out here in a minute. But first, we do want to talk about this week's heat wave and the actions that 211 and other local organizations are taking to keep people safe. Lessons we know were absolutely learned during Oregon's historic heat wave earlier this summer. There was a day during that stretch in late June when 211 wasn't available and about 750 calls were missed. So lawmakers approved funding for 211 to keep the service open around the clock.
We were not pleased with our experience in June. And I think collectively as a system, there was a lot of learning and a lot of improvements to be had.
What's different this time, would you say?
We're much more on point. We understand the severity. We understand the complexity. We understand the impact.
Since COVID began, 211 Info has actually tripled its staff and has also recruited help from the National Guard. Speaking of help, if you just text that word you see right there, text the word HEAT to 503-226-5088. We'll send you back a link to cooling center locations in the area and other resources that can help during this heat wave. All right, Chris McGinnis, I was outside in Canby a couple of hours ago working on a story. We got there at 9. I thought we'd beat the heat. We didn't. It was still hot at 9 o'clock this morning.
You know, and when you're out in the sun, you can just magnify that just a little bit more, right? So, yeah, and it's good if you have to work outside, obviously, to get it done, not during the heat of the day. And we're already there, right? Temperatures downtown are already 85 degrees and warmer than that in some locations. So let's think cool for at least a minute. Let's take you to the North Oregon coast. It is clear as a bell right now up at Cannon Beach. The beach will be the only place that escapes the intense heat over the next couple of days. But that said, some folks along the immediate coastline may very well get into the lower 80s over the next few days. All right, right now we're looking at 87 degrees at PDX. I mentioned it's 84 in downtown. It's already 90 in Beaverton. Hillsborough just shy of that in the big picture across the state. You go east out along Interstate 84, East Gorge right now. The Dow's checking in with 94. Pendleton already 95 degrees at lunchtime. This is a very hot air mass that is continuing to bubble up over us, and that's going to lead to temperatures up over the century mark for most of the Willamette Valley. We think today Portland may or may not get there. I've got us at 99 this afternoon, but regardless, that is still dangerously hot. So that excessive heat warning continues for everywhere shaded in this bright pink color. That includes the Columbia Basin, the Gorge, and basically all of western Oregon west of the Cascades, the exception the Oregon coast. As we mentioned, it will still be pretty hot there. And Drew, this runs through Saturday. The peak of the heat will probably be tomorrow, when many valley locations will likely be over 100 degrees. I'll walk you through that forecast and let you know when we can expect some cooling in just a few minutes.
All right, more from Chris later, but right now we do have one more angle on this heat wave. This one is about Meals on Wheels, because Meals on Wheels is a great example of a local organization with a plan in place to help people out during this hot stretch. Volunteers and staff have been delivering extra water and fans to local seniors. They're also offering those seniors advice about how to stay cool, and it's really simple things like putting a cold rag on your neck or taking a cold shower. Meals on Wheels CEO Suzanne Washington says some of the people they serve are absolutely vulnerable during a hot stretch that is like this one.
Unfortunately, we do have people who pass, and our volunteers and staff find them when we deliver food to the door. I think the heat is exacerbating everything, and many of the people who passed last heat wave, they were older. So we want to make sure that everybody's getting checked on whether they're our client or not.
Meals on Wheels could also use more volunteers, especially during times like this. So if you're interested, you can find more information about their volunteer opportunities at their website. All right, now on to our other top story here this afternoon. Starting Friday, everyone in Oregon, 5 and older, will have to wear a mask inside public spaces. Just about an hour ago, Governor Brown laid out the specifics of the state's plan to deal with the Delta variant. So for one, on public transportation, children older than 2 will need to wear a mask. Also, the Oregon Health Authority recommends masks in crowded outdoor situations. OSHA will handle enforcement in workplaces. All of these new rules, by the way, come just one day after Oregon set new records for COVID cases and hospitalizations. ICU beds in Oregon are 90% filled, and projections by OHSU say we could be short 500 hospital beds by September.
The latest science is clear that both vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals are able to spread the Delta variant. Masks are simple and they are effective. Wearing a mask should give you confidence that you are not infecting others.
One more big mandate from the governor. All executive branch state employees are now required to get vaccinated by October 18th. There's also concern right now about the rise of phony vaccination cards that are being sold online. A lot of colleges and universities are requiring proof of vaccination this fall. Now the question is, how easy will it be for students to cheat the system? NBC's Tom Costello has more.
This fall, getting back to normal includes college students going back to campus. But with nearly 700 universities and colleges now requiring proof of vaccination, some administrators are worried about a new black market. Counterfeit certifications, some going for as much as $200.
The students who've spoken with me have been clear that they know exactly how they would get fraudulent vaccine cards, and that they know students who have submitted these fraudulent vaccine cards.
The University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, one of the schools requiring students to submit their proof of vaccination. As an alternative, some, like UNC, also offer the option for students to undergo regular testing. Junior Simon Palmori says he believes most of his classmates would not upload a fake card, but
it's really distressing to think that students that could be sitting behind me in class could be both unvaccinated and not being tested.
UNC tells NBC News it conducts periodic verification of documents and no fraudulent entries have been found so far. It also notes that lying or falsifying documents could result in disciplinary action. But fake vaccination cards have been advertised online, like this Instagram user offering $25 per card, and this Telegram account with the tagline, "Protect yourself from the poisonous COVID-19 vaccines." The FBI used a public service announcement earlier this year to be on the lookout, warning against making or buying a fake card.
The unauthorized use of a government agency seal is illegal, and it is punishable by a hefty fine and/or up to 5 years in prison.
2 airline passengers entering Canada from the U.S. were recently fined nearly $16,000 each for using fake vaccination cards. It all comes as some cities and businesses are implementing their own proof of vaccination requirements for activities like dining indoors, going to gyms, or seeing shows.
We're trying to entertain folks. So I'm not saying anybody has to get a vaccine or a negative test, but if you don't, then you don't get to come to the show.
But for some in the restaurant industry already hard hit by the pandemic, frustration over having to police their customers' vaccination status.
To me, it seems like the government is trying to get around it by having small business do the enforcing that the government should really be doing.
Back on campus in Chapel Hill, Professor Chapman is hoping everyone takes the lessons learned from the pandemic to have a safe semester.
It means thinking about what those healthcare providers have gone through over the course of the last 18 months and not wanting to be a part of stressing them further.
Again, that was Tom Costello reporting. Experts also say part of the problem is the flimsy paper cards were never meant to serve as long-term identification tools in the first place, mainly because of how easily they can be recreated. In other COVID news, this Friday, the CDC will review the data on COVID vaccine booster shots. An advisory committee will discuss things like dosage and give an update on additional doses for people who are immunocompromised. The panel, though, won't call a vote on this. Instead, the FDA would first have to either amend the emergency use authorization or grant full approval of the vaccines. We also want to take a look this afternoon at some of our local wildfires here in Oregon. We'll start with this story. Firefighters from Polk and Yamhill counties are headed down to help with the Skyline Ridge Complex fire. That one's burning in Douglas County and actually contains several small fires that have spread now across 2,000 acres. Officials expect that fire to become more active this week because of the heat, so they're trying to get more crews in place. Also, the Boot Lake fire, now considered 98% contained with some smoking hotspots left. It's mostly out at this point, and firefighters are able to get a better look at the actual burned area. So this is brand new aerial video from Southern Oregon, and what you'll see from this video is that the fire did not burn everything in its path. Instead, it was more of a patchwork pattern. There were some scorched areas, lots of them as a matter of fact, but also some areas that are still green. Firefighters explain the fire was more than 410,000 acres, but that doesn't mean everything inside the perimeter of the fire was actually destroyed.